Good afternoon. Usually in the course of things, there are beginning, middle, and end. And this is the human condition, to think in these terms. And there comes a time when you'll need to discard, even though you've been raised, nourished, reinforced, goal setting. People want you to be a human doing. Being in the natural condition as a human being tends to make most of those around you either uncomfortable at best, or at worst, judgmental. You need to do something. You need to take action. You need to put more effort. You need to have more planning. You need to have more vision. You need to have more drive. And one of the things that caught my interest in a systems appeal so much to me. My mind is systematic, constantly building new systems, only to begin dismantling, at least searching out for weaknesses, looking for ways to shore them up, addressing the weaknesses. And better yet is to examine an already existing system. And I would just rigorously deconstruct, looking for the weakness, which is a strength of mine to identify, to look for weakness, especially in an argument, a structure, a social construct, or best yet, a system. So when I came across human design, the system of human design, more than 10 years ago, for the most part, it's remained intact despite my best efforts to search out weaknesses. And after 10 years of rigorous examination, it still pretty much holds to my original understanding of the system. In fact, only problems I've ever had was with individual interpretation, and that's to be expected. But when looked at in its purest sense, human design talks about 4 basic types. Projector, which I am happily and accurately classified as. And then then generators, the energy beings. And I've had occasion to watch my brother recently, and he's one of the strongest energy beings that I've ever met. He's just continually cranking out, producing energy. As a projector, I'm a non-energy being. I don't have a dynamo in the gut producing energy. In fact, I need to plug in. I need to continually look for a source of energy. And I need to keep my own counsel. Anyway, we'll talk more about human design and the 4 types at another. But what's worth mentioning here is that it's a system, one of the few that after 10 years of study still retains its usefulness. But I had inherently known I was a non-energy being and constantly compared to the generators, that I was supposed to do more. And I'm sure, as my brother has been watching me these last few months that we're together, it's in the secret of his secrets, he thinks that I should do more. I should put more energy into doing things instead of waiting for the world to come to me. But there's been occasions when he sees that my skill set is different than his skill set, and he's seen direct results of my waiting for the world to come. I know he probably puts in a category of reacting instead of acting. And I'm okay with that. And I just have to remember to be true to what I am. So this beginning, middle, and ending, and the focus on a goal. And for the purposes of today's talk, I'm calling it the end game. What's the end game of any potential plan or action? What's the results? And you always hear based on results, as if the results are fair game to be a reflection of the usefulness of the efforts it took to reach the end game. Was it too much effort? Could it have had more effort? These are the questions that come along with this kind of one-size-fits-all thinking for human beings, human endeavors, human achievements, human dreams, human desires. This idea that one set of rules is applicable to each and every one of us. Well, I have rejected this soundly. I listen to my body. Recently, I've been taking long naps. I've been resting, preserving my energies as I know that take advantage of this time, because times are coming when I'm going to need more energy. I'm going to have to exert more energy, spend up. So I'm saving. And I like the concept of saving. Much like a squirrel, I'm squirreling it away for another day. And without any sense of alarm, I feel that the day is approaching. Busy times lie ahead. The world will come to me more insistently. And I have to be prepared for such times. As far as planning, effort, we're talking about willpower. And just as I knew that my journey was not about aggressively engaging the world around me, through a series of self-inflicted limitations, it turns out, willpower and its close cousin is diametrically opposed, often overlooked, but equally important is want power. And I delved in want power. I won't eat meat. I won't move during meditation. I won't drink alcohol. Lots of wants. Probably I'm a victim of lack of want power or ineffectiveness. Not that I lacked it, because I have proven many times over. Once I get on a regime, once I get on a self-imposed scale of limitations, as I see these kind of activities, I can stick to it. But what's the end game? What's the final result? How effective, and as my primary focus has been awakening, the process of waking up, listening to the universe, listening for echoes to help the process of remembering what was intentionally forgotten, even though this took place on a subconscious level. As we come into the world, we are blessed with a forgetting process, so that, number one, we're not overwhelmed by the errors of our ways. Imagine if you had tens of thousands of lifetimes accumulated all your mistakes, all your wrongdoings, and you had to live with that burden. Isn't the burden of mistakes in this lifetime almost, or can feel at times, overwhelming, depending on the degree that your mistakes have occurred? So this forgetting process, forgetting all the other incarnations, we come to this incarnation focused on what we need to learn to provide the most opportunity to become what we really and completely are. The conditions, the people, and we on the level of light body, before we've been incarnated again, we know better than anyone what we need. And if we're fortunate enough to have spirit guides, for me, Damo and Roger Bacon, the Franciscan friar, 13th century Franciscan friar. We're fortunate enough to have these spirit guides. They will help us when our own cognition or sensing is less than what it could be. So we come into this life. The conditions are chosen to foster, to present us the most opportunities to continue our growth. And until a certain level of understanding takes place, you see an end game. The end game for me previously has been to get off the wheel of incarnation. Do not have to come to this level of existence again, to have successfully learned, absorbed, incorporated all that I need, all that's available at this level. You see that I certainly did as an end game. I didn't want to have to come back. And the beauty, something beautiful happens in the process of awakening when you wake up. You can choose the mandate. You have a mandate, and you can choose. Inherent with the mantle of Buddha, you have a sense of responsibility to help all sentient beings. So many don't jump off immediately of this wheel of incarnation, at least on this earthly plane. Instead, they choose to selflessly return. My spirit guides are perfect examples of this selflessness. So planning, in its purest sense, which becomes scheming in its most limited sense, has never served me well. When I have a plan, my experience has taught me that I'm better off without one, because the consequences of this plan, particularly active, stepping out into the onslaught of the world that we find ourselves in, reacting to it as if I'm real on the egoic level, and the world is equally as real. even though it's Maya, illusory. Doing so has had predominantly negative impact and consequences. The end game, when I had my eye on something other than eventual awakening, the spirit journey. Did not turn out well for me, to the point where before I met human design, I was already comfortable with letting the world come to me and learning that when opportunities were presented to me by the world, that I needed to act on them. That was the effort. I took my cue from my cat, napping, sleeping, until they needed to react, to jump. And it happened quickly and spontaneously, seemingly without reflection, without anticipation, just mindful acting. So there is a place. If you're too passive, if you wait till the world comes to you, which it will come to you. Believe it or not. And learning to be okay with waiting is a tremendous asset. Offering tremendous, unbelievable peace of mind, knowing that without conscious effort, without doing something, through simply being, that a truer path, a better alternative will come your way. So spiritually, I saw this end game. There is a beginning, a middle, and an end. Allegedly, or so it seemed. And the end game. But when permanent awakening came, it came with some very interesting insights. Number one, it was nothing like I expected it, anticipated it to be. Number two, there was no end game. The spiritual path continues. And my gut tells me that you awaken, all of us will awaken on the physical level while we're in a physical form. Sooner or later. Actually, exactly on time. It will happen for each of us when it was meant to happen. This awakening this dissolution, this recognition of Maya, this deconstruction of the ego, seeing it for what it is. But the sense that it was ending, aha, I'm here, now what? I just rest in my laurels. Instead, I saw that probably there would be an opportunity to awaken on an infinite number of levels. We leave the earthly plane, and what I looked at, what I experienced as this physical incarnation was more or less a kindergarten. Our experience on earth is pretty much a kindergarten. And levels beyond hold promises, hold opportunities unimaginable. So it's just a taste of that. And I think the taste, we experience the taste primarily to keep us from resting on our laurels. I've accomplished awakening. I'm done. All I have to do is withdraw from the world and smirk. This is the realm of the spiritual ego, as I call it. I'm better than others. And I would be less than honest that when I had this experience, I spent 6 months to a year unaware that a spiritual ego was a much more difficult entity to expose than the simple ego on the physical level. This was an insidious trap. And this is why, if I had it to do over again, which I don't, once it's done, I would have remained silent about the occurrence. But instead, I went out and talked to close allies, kind of boasting, kind of thinking that I had accomplished something that extraordinary, that in and of itself were inherently in the realm of ordinariness. It's a condition of each of us. It's just a matter of when. So putting the spiritual ego aside is probably why I got a glimpse of so much more, why I was humbled. Now, my sharing predominantly had negative consequences as I can see them now, with the exception of 2 dear people that I shared with that have remained convinced that such an event actually occurred for me. But the rest are full of doubt, as it should be. We should doubt until it becomes otherwise until we're without any inkling of deniability. Others don't want to really recognize the awakening of those they know that they are on a close personal relationship with. But I think because it makes them feel less than. In anything that we do or say or think or feel that makes anyone feel less than is to be avoided at all costs. So this coming of full circle, living in a world of beginnings, middles, and endings, setting goals, pursuing goals, accomplishing said goals, is a limitation of seeing time as linear. Tick-tock, tick-tock, tick-tock. Time is not measurable. Time, the experience of time in a linear sense, beginning, middle, and end, is an artificial construct supported by our ego, supported by the culture that we're born in, supported by the accumulation of knowledge that is yet to pass the litmus test of ascending into wisdom. Gathering information, sorting it, storing it, filing it, examining it, forming knowledge with the ultimate goal of wisdom is only another way of looking at linear consequences. When you begin to come full circle, you will really begin to understand there are no beginnings, certainly no middles, and as a consequence, there's no endings. It's onward and upward.